Welcome to Studio Hockey. My name is Ernst Baart and I'm joined by my co-host in this podcast, Jaspreet Singh. Studio Hockey is all about domestic and international hockey, and together we make sure that we look at our game of hockey from both a European and a more Asian perspective. Our guest for today is Allison Keefe, who will be delivering a completely new perspective for us, the US perspective. Allison is, correct me if I'm wrong, Allison, but you're from New Jersey in the US, so that's
Yep.
East Coast. So that means that we are not only in very different time zones while recording this. Allison has just woken up. I'm almost halfway through my day already, and Jaspreet is close to the evening in Delhi. But it also means that we look at our game of hockey from very different perspectives. Um, I learned about Allison from her Substack platform, the Field Hockey Analyst, where she shares her insights about the game in the US and related to the national teams of the US. And a quote that caught our eye is from Allison, the quote, "I believe that the first step to growing the game is to talk about the game." Well, both Jaspreet and myself, as you can see clearly on the screen here, are a couple of old men. So we are not from the generation that speaks social media as their native language. Please explain what you meant and how you go about using social media to grow the game, Allison.
Hi. Yeah. So in the U.S., we have a collegiate system. It's called the NCAA. So it's players 18 through 22, 23. And when I started, I was playing Division I field hockey at Sacred Heart, which is kind of the bottom of Division I field hockey. Like there's 80 teams, and I think we were usually ranked like around 60. So I noticed from my own experience that no one really talked about our team. And then one of my best friends plays Division 3, which Division 3 is, my American friends are going to get mad at me, but it's the lowest division of college field hockey. Um, and like she's a very good player. And I was getting really annoyed because no one ever talked about her team. Like if you Googled my team, some stuff would come up. If you Googled her team, you would maybe get a roster, and that was about it. So that obviously made me really annoyed. Because I'm someone who thinks that everyone should get recognition. Not like everyone should get a trophy, but like if you're doing good, you should get recognized for that. So I started originally on Twitter my senior year of college. So my last year, I think I was 19 when I started, but most of this I was 20. I just started posting on Twitter about Division 3 field hockey, just kind of what was happening, like game scores, rankings, that kind of stuff. Because even like we don't have an internal ranking system for Division 3 past the top 25 teams, which I think is stupid because there's 163 or 4 teams, and you only know who the top 25 are. So me being very stubborn and realistically very American, I was like, this is stupid. I'm gonna do something to fix it. Um, so I started posting on Twitter, and then it eventually morphed into Instagram just because that's where a majority of our players are. Twitter was more like coaches and that kind of age group, maybe some older college players, but Instagram had more of the like younger players, like the 18, 19-year-olds and the even younger players, because Instagram also acts as a major recruiting platform for college field hockey. So a lot of our like 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds are posting on Instagram to try to get recruited to college, which in itself is like a crazy, crazy culture.
Yes.
Um, like it's a little ridiculous, our college recruiting culture. But yeah, so I started posting on social media, and we actually just hit 20,000 followers yesterday. So
Cool.
it's clearly working. But yeah, I think that in America, there's not a lot of coverage on field hockey. If you ask most normal people about field hockey, they'll probably tell you either it's the sport that you play with candy canes, or they might be able to tell you who Aaron Matson is, and I think that's about it. Like a lot of people don't know we have a men's national team.
Oh,
They
wow.
don't know that they just played in the Olympics. I mean, Pan Americans is kind of its own thing, but no one knows that Pan Americans just happened.
Mm.
So no one's really talked about it. There's no like ESPN is not posting about hockey here. So I kind of just took that into my own hands because I think like us qualifying for the Olympics last year, at least in my opinion, was a very big deal after having not qualified for the 2020-21 Olympics. Um and I knew that like I know most of our players at this point, like most of the seniors, and I was like someone needs to give them a platform. And I, at that point, maybe had 10,000 followers. So I was like, okay, I can start to give them a platform. And it's just kind of like really that the national team coverage has really just grown from there.
Mm. Seems very cool. Jess.
Yep. Yeah. Uh, let's talk about the difference in hockey culture, Alison. In Europe, where Ernst comes from, it is all about pay to play, and it has the club systems where families and friends come together. Hockey is part of their social life, so as to say. In India, we expect to be paid to play. It's a career choice and less of a leisure activity. It has become the game has become professional here over the years. In the US, it seems to be most play in order to get a scholarship, and once the college days are over, there is no more space in life for field hockey. Do you agree with that? And tell us why people start playing hockey in the US.
Yeah, it's definitely pay to play when you're younger, and then once you get your college scholarship, it's kind of you're going to play in college, and then you're either going to coach or you're never going to play again. We don't have really great retention when it comes to field hockey past the age of like 23. Um, and I think like for starting, most kids when they start hockey, I mean, I started when I was 14, which is obviously pretty late compared to most like European and Asian countries. Um, we don't have in my area, we don't have hockey before the age of maybe 12. There are no programs for younger kids unless you want to play club, which is obviously very expensive and it's a lot more of a time commitment. Um, Meanwhile, like soccer, football, um, I started playing football when I was 4. Like that is it's the sport that you put your kids in here. And I mean, I was a competitive cheerleader for 8 years and I started cheerleading at 5 years old. So it's those are more of sports like flag American football, soccer, football. Those are the sports that you put your kids in, and also like baseball, not so
Yep.
much field hockey. If you're in Pennsylvania, which is also on the East Coast, it's like the state next to where I am. That is a place where you do start your kids at hockey at age 4 or 5 years old. It's where most of our senior national team comes from. And it used to be the home of USA Field Hockey, probably 10 years ago now, before they relocated to North Carolina. So the hockey culture there is a little bit different. Um, but in general, it's basically once you get to college, because there is no professional league, no one really plays after college unless you're in the national team system. Which obviously I think is really disappointing because I want everyone to just keep playing hockey. And our club system is also kind of uh, I would say a lot of people don't necessarily have loyalty to our clubs. I know like in Europe, like you kind of your parents played for the club, then you play for the club, and it's very like that is your club, that's who you represent. Where here, it's not unheard of for players to have played in 3 or 4 clubs in their career. There's a club, WC Eagles, in Pennsylvania, that they are the best club in America. Once again, my American fans might get a little offended by me saying that, but they are the best club in America. Um, and they like there's players who will drive 2-3 hours just to go train there. So they'll play for their club, and then once it gets to the point where they really need to pick up college recruiting, they'll go train there, or they go to boarding schools in Pennsylvania so that they can train there.
Mm.
So there's I think, less of a club loyalty here than there is in other countries.
Yeah. So how did you get into the game? You say you got into the game at the age of 14, and you mentioned that okay, not in club hockey. So what's the difference between high school hockey and club hockey? Is there a cultural difference there? Why do parents put them in one or the other, or maybe both? And why did you make your choices the way that you made them?
Yeah, so I started school hockey when I was about 14. And honestly, my story is really weird because I was a competitive cheerleader, as I mentioned before. And my last year of cheerleading when I was 13, 14 years old was a really bad year, but I'd also like really hurt my knee. And I was kind of like in a spot where I was like, I don't think I can keep doing this. I want to try something different.
And you thought it would
But
be good for your knees to go into field hockey?
yeah, maybe not my best decision in life. And my knees probably will tell you right now that making switching to field hockey is probably the worst decision in my life, but
I can
it's
imagine.
okay. But yeah, so basically I was like going to switch to high school cheerleading because it's less uh co- youth competitive cheerleading here is all year. Like you literally get maybe 3 weeks off the entire year, where like high school it's less because you get like summers off or whatever. So I was going to switch to high school field hockey or to high school cheerleading. Um it's a very weird story of the coach that I knew wasn't there the day that of like signups, so I randomly signed up for field hockey instead.
Oh
And then
wow.
I just started playing field
Really?
hockey.
So that was an
Yeah,
accident?
it was genuinely an accident for me to start playing field hockey, and I think it's the funniest thing. And then I only played one season because once again I had really bad knees already, and by the end of my first year, I was like completely injured, had to have surgery, and just
Oh,
wasn't able to play. So like truly, the weirdest workings of like fate that I made it this far in field hockey.
Okay.
Um,
So how do you then go about from accidentally choosing hockey, only playing for a year or so because of injuries, to opening up a Substack platform called the Field Hockey Analyst, and doing well over there apparently. So how does that transition come about?
in short,
yeah, it
so
was
you
definitely
should be hating hockey. In short, maybe.
Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely like a weird transition. And I laugh about it a lot with my friends. Because my first year I also didn't necessarily like it. I like cried before every practice because I didn't want to go. Um, and then so after my first year, I was injured, but at that point we thought I was going to be able to play in the future. So I was like, okay, I'll just do like our scoring books for our team. So like I would write down like who had goals and assists, and I've always been a numbers person. Like I could tell you scores from when I was 6 years old in cheerleading, and like the
Mm.
point difference that we lost by. I still have those memorized. I'm very much a numbers person. Although I don't like the subject of math in school, so that makes no sense either. Um, but yeah, so I started doing that, and I did that my first year, or I guess it was my second year of high school, so I was like 15, 16ish. And then I thought I was going to get cleared medically from my knee, didn't get cleared, so I had to do that for a second year. And then my coach got fired, a bunch of stuff happened, and I was just like, all right, I'm not going to play. I'm going to do my last year and call it a day. Um, and then when I was choosing colleges, I didn't play in college, and I only applied to one college that had field hockey. Um, and I just happened to choose that school and reach out to their coach and was like, "Hey, I need a job. Like, I'll do your stats and your lunch orders because that's like what I was a manager, and the managers literally like set up cones, order lunch, and maybe sometimes do stats. Um, and I was like, all right, I'm getting paid decent money to do this every day. I get paid hourly, and I get paid to be on the bus for 8 hours. So I'll do it. It's fine. Um, and then from there, like I actually started to like the sport probably around like when I was like 16 or 17. And yeah, somehow we ended up here.
That's quite interesting. How your love affair with hockey, so as to say. But we live in a world where sports science governs the way elite sports are played. Um, and you bring analysis to the table. But is there a way that you bring analysis that's something different to how it is being done currently, or maybe a year back when you started?
I would say yeah. So I also work for a handful of college teams and then the junior national team. I'm one of their video analysts. So I definitely like a lot of what I post is very public stuff that I feel like I have to cater to a very wide range of audiences. Because I know I have some like 13, 14-year-olds subscribed to my Substack, and then some of like the senior national team's parents subscribe to my
Mm.
Substack. So very like different understandings of hockey. So a lot of the public stuff I do is very like I would say visual, a lot of graphics, a lot of trying to break things down. And then like on the like for my teams that I actually work for, like I'm very big on tells, especially in corners, because I think there's a lot of players, even internationally, who like you can tell exactly where this corner is going to go or what they're going to do. A lot of them have giveaways, whether it's the stick stop, putting their stick completely down or hovering it, or dead stop versus like a pushing it off their stick on the stop. I've even seen kids who like they redo their hair before they get the ball. Like there's everyone has like a minuscule tell, especially on corners and strokes. So that's something that I specifically love looking at. With our juniors are at the Junior Pan Americans right now, which I'm sure no one knows is even happening. Um, and like I was like looking at our strokes and kind of looking at like, okay, well this kid might do this, so maybe she's not our first stroker. Our first stroker did score on I think it was Monday. They converted on her stroke, and I was very proud of her. But like that's something that like we look at is we put the drone up behind the goal and we just kind of look at their positioning and their eyes and all of that movement, figure out like um if it's readable for the goalkeepers.
That's pretty in-depth stuff there that you're doing. So do you do that? And now starting maybe negative, but do you do that only on the college level or the high school level, or do you also look at these things on international games and international players?
um it depends on like the event. So for like I've looked at certain international teams that I know we play a lot. Like Argentina I've looked at like just personally, just because they're in Pan American, so we play them constantly. So they're a team that I've definitely like studied a lot more. I've studied the Netherlands a little bit, and Australia, basically pro league teams, and then like New Zealand because that's a team we've played like 4 or 5 times this season already. So those are teams that I kind of look at more than just like overall international, and then I don't really look at like Euro League or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's where the adversary is that you look at, obviously. Yeah. Um, Jaspreet.
Yeah, Alison, you've been following the Pan Am Cup recently, which was also the qualifier for the World Cup. What can you tell us about the event and how did the US team fare in that?
Yeah, so I think the tournament really went really well for both the women and men's team. Our men's got silver. It was the first time we've made the final since I believe it was 2009.
Okay, wow.
And a very fun, not so fun fact is Reese Ariano, who is our youngest player on the women's side. She's 16. Was like 5 months old the last time they made
Ooh.
the final, the gold medal match. So obviously, great result for our men considering where our program is at,
Yeah.
with us trying to lead towards the 2028 Olympics and kind of peak there. Um, Obviously, we want more results from the men in that gap between, but I think the men really did good. I think our goalkeeper had a great performance, and then we had one game that our semifinal went to shootouts. And Emil, I believe his last name is Collins. Don't quote me on that. It was his first tournament ever with the senior men's program here, and he did all the shootouts for us. And had a great performance. So that was really fun to watch.
Mhm.
And I think our men's side, like once again, I barely even talk about our men's side on my platform, so it's definitely not our main team, which is interesting because every other country, like the men's side is a big deal for us because we don't have a youth development system for them.
Yeah.
You can't play club if you're a men. You like we stop at U14 co-ed, and then they go straight to 18s. They don't have a 16s for men here.
Yeah.
You can't play college hockey in almost every state. You can't play high school field hockey. So we don't have a development system. So it's just really exciting to watch them and see some of our younger players in that system playing so well. Sakai, I cannot say his last name. It starts with a C. I've been told a million times how to say his last name, but he's from Louisville, Kentucky, which is not like a hotbed for field hockey here at all.
Uh,
And he is one of he's 19 maybe, and he's probably one of the most prominent players on our men's program right now. So it's really exciting to see kind of this younger generation of men's players, and then competing with like Pat Harris, who probably has a billion caps at this point. Like he's been playing since probably I was born. Um, so
yeah,
like there's
yeah,
a it's really interesting to see like our men's program actually doing like performing well. Obviously the Argentina match I think ended in like a 10-0 loss for us. So probably not our best performance in that game, but otherwise I thought the tournament went really well for our men's program.
yeah.
And then
Be-
on our
before you move on then to the women's side of the Pan Am there. So how do these young men get to that program of the national team? Is that only the possibility of club hockey?
Also,
so
if I can add to that, we see a lot of expats, especially from India and Pakistan, playing hockey in the US. So, what is the percentage of those players or those kids growing into hockey players to represent the US team?
I don't know the exact percentage, but I know it's probably very high. So for the men's development system, it's kind of they're reshaping it right now. So we now have more like we have youth national teams. So we have a U16, a U18, and a U21, and they have now switched it so there's weird names. It's like U16 and then U16A and U16 developmental. And they've made them like 4 or 5 national teams so that once they get out of that U12, U14 age group, they have somewhere to go if they want to continue. All of our youth systems train once a month in North Carolina. It's a 3-day weekend. It's like 5 practices, maybe 4 practices. I can't count off the top of my head apparently. But it's once a week and then or once a month, and then they go to we play all of our youth teams play like an Easter invitational in April over last year it was like Netherlands, England, and Spain. Um, so we've definitely made progress with just keeping them at the international or the national level. And then we have some tournaments where like U18 guys play. NIT, like our national indoor tournament, is like the biggest one,
Yeah.
which I have a lot of opinions about whether or not indoor translates to outdoor. But we,
Share them, please.
yeah, I don't think it's necessarily the best indicator. Like indoor is the best indicator for outdoor performance. Some players translate really well, others don't.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that there's been kind of a big focus on indoor for the boys right now.
Mm.
So and then hockey fives is also one of the bigger things we're doing for our men's program, which I feel like hockey fives internationally has died. So I
I
don't know if
wish.
maybe that
I wish.
really.
Really, really. It's for me. It's the format I hate the most in our sport, and I am truly convinced it
We
will.
we
If we, it will be the death of our sport.
we all believe hockey is only 11 versus 11, nothing else.
Yeah,
No, exactly.
I'm a big hater of hockey fives. So like the transition, it's because of numbers because we don't have enough players
Yeah.
to field however many teams we field for the girls. But I don't think that hockey fives is probably the best, like a step in the right direction,
Oh,
for the youth boys. And then, oh, as you said, a lot of our players are international players. I don't know off the top of my head how many are the senior team. Our U16 team is, I think, every single kid except one is from California. because there's like one club in California called Moore Park, which has men's field hockey, and they're very good at men's field hockey. So there's like it's literally like a blip on the dot of that is California. California is massive, and there's like one town that has men's field hockey. So most of our younger guys are coming from that area. And then once you get into like the older 18s, then it's a lot of like international players who have U.S. citizens or U.S. playing rights, who are now playing here.
Okay, let's bring us back to the Pan Am with the women.
Yeah, just one thing I wanted
Okay.
to ask about that expats thing, Indian and Pakistan origin players. It's mostly seen in the men's game. Are there any women also interested in that? Means we haven't seen much of a women from this part of the world playing for the US.
Yeah, so right now on the seniors, I believe San Carls is the only player. She's Dutch. In the U21 system, Juliana Boone is also Dutch, but she became like she started playing in the U.S. system. I think maybe at 18s or 16s. It's been like 4 or 5 years now. So she's been in our youth development system, but she is also Dutch. So we have like a handful of players who have tried, like who are expats who have tried, but for the most part, they are almost all like Americans.
Okay, bring us back to the Pan Am and the women's results.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously the World Cup bid was what the goal was going into it. For those who don't follow the Pan Americans, because no one follows the Pan Americans, it was $30 to watch the tournament, and I don't think many people were paying for that. So Argentina is the powerhouse in the Pan Americans, and Argentina had gotten their World Cup bid through Pro League. So all we needed to do was finish second, which pretty much is a very obtainable goal for us to finish second. Obviously, we want to win a gold. Argentina exists, so that makes it kind of hard. But every game's winnable. So our goal going into it was obviously get our World Cup bid, come out with a medal, and we achieved that. We had a very close semifinal games that ended in shootouts. Both of our semifinals on women's and men's ended in shootouts, and they were back to back, and I thought I was going to die watching them. But Kelsey Bing, our goalkeeper, she has been phenomenal in goal for Team USA for quite a while now. She hadn't been back since Paris. She came back for a series against New Zealand about a month ago, maybe, and beginning of July. And then she played in this tournament every game except for the finals. And her shootout performance was amazing. She is such a great goalkeeper. Even in field play, she just makes saves that you can't imagine are even possible sometimes. And I think our defensive penalty corner unit this entire tournament was amazing. We had quite a few penalty corners against us. Like a lot of penalty corners against us, and our defensive penalty corner unit does a great job at defending and stopping those attempts. I mean, personally, I'd like to see us get less corners against us. But for a team, I'm going to call out Argentina real quick. I'm sorry to the Argentinians, but Argentina loves to take shots from really low angles. So for Argentina, it's like, okay, maybe we just let them take those really random shots that are maybe going to get tipped, maybe not, versus a straight shot from the top. They both their men's and women's programs take shots from like really low angles, like wide of the P spot, and their XG, their expected goals from those spots are really bad. So stats.
Yes.
So I think that like we performed really well. We also had quite a few injuries throughout the tournament. Ashley Sessa, who was one of our stars at the Olympics, had a broken thumb literally in the last practice before they left, and wasn't able to play in the tournament. Beth Yeager, who is our first flicker on corners, she got injured, I believe, before the semifinal, and had to be flown home to have surgery. And I think we had another injury. I can't remember who it was. So we had quite a few injuries. We were playing with our alternate, and one of our because Sessa got injured prior to the tournament, we only traveled with one alternate. So we were kind of left in like a rough spot towards the end of it. I think they held through really well and showed a lot of resilience, but with a full strength team, maybe that Argentina game is a lot closer than it was. You never know. One can hope. But yeah, I think we had a great performance from Pan Am's, and I'm excited that we have our World Cup bid already, so I don't have to pray and cry during the World Cup qualifiers for the women's. Our men's do have to go to the World Cup qualifiers, so we'll see how they fare there. But I'm excited for the women to go to the World Cup this year or next year, I guess.
You've also written that you want to bridge the data gap between men and women's sports. Take us through what you analyze to come to that thought.
Yeah, so in America, obviously, we are a very men's sports heavy country. That's just the way we culturally are. You know, most people are born into football teams that like you have to be a fan of, if your family will like disown you. The Super Bowl is like a national holiday here. It's very weird. I'm not a American football fan. If you can't tell, I prefer soccer football.
The real football.
Yeah, real football. So it's like culturally, men's sports are a big thing, and like baseball is one sport that has so much data that it's honestly like egregious how much data they have. I was looking one day, and they have calculated wind speeds of every game since like 2013. And yes, can wind affect baseball? Sure, but I don't know why we have a database of wind speeds from every single game. Like they play a lot of games. It's kind of ridiculous. Meanwhile, for like field hockey, we can barely get like proper like there's college teams that are like top level college teams that don't record how many strokes their players take and convert. And it's like that is such an easy stat to have because it's a set piece. Like it's clearly a stroke, and they don't record it. So there's like this massive divide on data in sports. And I mean, yes, it's college versus professional in those examples, but even in like men's college football, men's college baseball, there's massive differences in what's available versus what we have for field hockey and what we have in women's sports in general. So I think that we need to like kind of bridge that divide. Obviously, this divide does not apply to men's field hockey in the US because they have nothing. But for like every other sport, there's a massive gap in data, and there's also a massive gap in research. In the Professional Women's Basketball League and Professional Women's Soccer League here, we have a massive ACL issue with players constantly tearing their ACL, and there's like little to no research on that. Which I mean, Hockey Fives, the Hockey Fives World Cup and their ACL problems. It still translates to field hockey where there's like this massive data research issue where like people are tearing their ACLs left and right, and we have nothing to figure out why that's happening. And it could be such a preventable injury, but like there's just no one's doing the research to fix it.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Coming back to the topic that Ernst touched before we started this podcast, the research paper that you co-authored, which discusses the use of machine learning and artificial intelligence in predicting performance. Although that paper was for women's collegiate basketball, if I remember correctly, uh, help us understand the role of AI as you see it through your eyes in data analysis in the future.
Yeah, so that paper was written when I was in college. It was about our women's basketball team, and it was mainly for performance and injury prediction. So could basically AI use the past performances to predict future performances? And then also could AI predict based on someone's performances and like how they were doing when they would get injured? I'm going to be honest, I have not read that paper in about 2 or 3 years now, so I don't remember the nitty gritty or what the conclusion was at this point. But I think in general for sports, um, AI. I mean, I'm hoping that AI does not replace my job as an analyst. It could theoretically.
Everybody has his fingers crossed. Most of the professionals in the world.
Yeah, but I think injury prediction is something that's really interesting. A lot of teams use internationally have heart rate monitors. Or they have like catapults or pullers, which are like heart rate monitors. They have GPS, muscle load, all of that other stuff. There's some other there's some teams, I don't know if anyone here does it, like in hockey does it. They have like patches that track like hydration levels as well. So there is a lot of interesting data that's being collected. I mean, I have polar data for one of the teams I work for, which is it's like heart rate, recovery time, low cardio load, muscle load. So a lot of really interesting data. And I mean, I have a degree in exercise science, and sometimes I look at the data and I'm like, I have no clue what to do with this data. Um, and like I literally studied it. So I think that with the injury prediction, like if that technology is developed out more, it could be really interesting for like that sort of data to be put into, you just put it into a system and it analyzes like, okay, this player needs more recovery time because she's at risk for injury versus this player should probably go run some extra sprints after the game because she didn't run enough. I think that is a step or an avenue where I think it would be really interesting for AI in sports to go. And then I also am a little bit of a fan of AI for video reviews. Maybe that's just because the Pan Americans had probably like 30 no advice possible video reviews. Um, and I was getting a little bit annoyed with the no advice possibles.
Yeah.
But I think that in the women's what is it, the World Cup for football, they America got a penalty kick. It was saved right over the, or it was saved, but it was right over the line. We lost the game over it. I'm still upset about that call. But that was clear. Like their technology is a little bit more advanced, and they were able to show exactly where the ball was over the line.
Mm.
Um, so I think that for us, like in field hockey, if the technology develops, that could be interesting to use AI for video reviews. Obviously, for like stuff like an egregious foul versus not an egregious foul, it might not be as helpful. But for like smaller errors, like was it backside of the stick, or like things like that, I think AI might be helpful instead of using um, like just helpful when it comes to getting those
Yeah.
decisions made from the umpires.
Or even faster, because that's
Yeah.
annoyance often. Absolutely. No, I am also very invested and a strong believer in AI for sports and for coaches. I believe that AI will have a major impact on coaching in the near future. Um, and I always tell coaches, I drove up to the European Championships earlier this week together with an international coach, and I've asked a lot of coaches in recent weeks what their usage is of AI, and almost 50% never ever use AI in whatever form or shape. But it's starting to grow a little bit, and I believe that there are lots of possibilities there. I've developed an AI dedicated for field hockey myself, but that's more about coaching and training and how to go about that. Um, I've asked several analysts from the top teams around the world already where they use AI today or think about using AI. Obviously, for a lot of competitive reasons, they are not willing yet to talk a lot about that. They think, okay, yeah, we're going that way, but it's a competitive advantage at the moment, so it's not the right time to really disclose that. Where would you use AI, and where not as an analyst? So not for video umpiring and or not for injury prevention, because that's actually a good uses as well. But so as an analyst, where would you use AI and where not? And how are you using AI in your analysis specifically for hockey? And what do you think that we can expect in the future from this?
Yeah, I'm not using too much AI right now. I use it more for like if I'm doing basically anything in R, because I'm R is like a coding software, and if you put a comma, it likes to break it. So I have to use AI a lot to check where I put the comma or where I didn't put the comma. Real fun, boring stuff. But I think that most teams, I would assume, have databases of, or a database is proper word, of their opponent's corners. And like how often they go to, the first castle, second castle, flicks, sweeps, whatever. And it probably would save most analysts a lot of time to just kind of throw it into, an AI system and get those results pulled out of, okay, Yibby Janssen's probably going to sweep, or not, oh my God, not sweep, flick every single time. This is how often Yibby goes to left versus right, high versus low. So kind of get those results a lot quicker than having to like go through and sort everything. And then I would probably assume that would be like corners scouting is probably going to be like the best way to use it for hockey. And then maybe if you have like a trend in your team, like I don't know, if you like are looking at like circle entries and you're like, okay, my team is going from left and left baseline and only converting like 6%, maybe using AI to be like, okay, like, well, this is how, because AI has essentially like global knowledge. Maybe using it to kind of see like, okay, well, does other teams have this conversion percentage, rather than having to like go through and watch everything. AI kind of has that global knowledge where maybe you're able to just search that information.
AI has global knowledge. That's a scary statement to an extent.
Yeah.
But let me take you back to hockey on the field, or field hockey as you call it in the US. We actually, Ernst and I, in the past, some time back, I remember uh, I kind of debating hockey is hockey. There is nothing called field hockey. Either there is hockey or there is ice hockey. That's it. Nothing called field hockey. What's your view on that? Just a quick one.
Yeah, I almost only say hockey. I don't say field hockey anymore, which leads to a lot of little boys in my comments saying, well, ice hockey is proper hockey. And then I'm just like, Google which one's more popular and which one was invented first. So yeah, I only say hockey. The only time I'll say field hockey is if I'm talking to someone who I know doesn't know I work in field hockey. Um, just because in that case they're going to probably assume ice hockey here. But if I'm talking to anyone I know, I will only say hockey.
Okay. Coming to the US field hockey or hockey, tell us about the upcoming season in the States. What are you looking forward to, and how will you follow and report and analyze? Any plans you have jotted down?
Yeah, so the college season starts the end of the month. It's always the first Friday or the last Friday of August. And streaming those games is terrible because the NCAA, each school and each conference can do their own media deals. So there's
Okay.
like ESPN will have some games. Big Ten, which is like your like Maryland, Northwestern, most of the top schools, they have their own subscription that costs like $10 a month. Then some of those games will be nationally broadcasted, so you need cable. And then some of the smaller conferences use what's called flow sports, which you have to pay for each conference separately, and they're extremely expensive. And then you get to like D3 field hockey, like I said earlier, that's kind of like the lower hockey, and they're streamed on YouTube for free with no commentary and maybe the camera moves. Um, so it's always an adventure trying to stream college field hockey. But I'm really excited for this season. We have basically the two powerhouses, North Carolina and Northwestern. Northwestern won last year. North Carolina won the year before. Northwestern has Maddie Zimmer and Ashley Sessa, who are both Olympians. on their team, and the national team assistant coach Tracy Fuchs, who's a former Olympian, is the head coach of Northwestern. I don't have favorites, but I do love watching Northwestern. And then North Carolina is always a powerhouse. They're probably like the most storied team in America. If you say field hockey to a normal person who has no clue about field hockey, they might know North Carolina, specifically Erin Matson's story. She was a player here for 5 years, won 4 national championships, and then 2 months after graduation became the head coach of the program. So a pretty cool story there. And they are rebuilding this year. They lost a lot of players. The NCAA also had a massive lawsuit, so we now have roster caps. So before you could have any amount of players, and a lot of teams had a lot of players because we have this law called Title IX, which basically means if I have 100 men's players in college sports, I have to have 100 women's players, which creates massive roster sizes. You'll see like lacrosse and soccer, football rosters be like 50, 60 kids, which is insane, especially for football that does not have rolling substitutions. So now field hockey is limited to 27. So massive rebuilding year. There's also a lot of issues with international visas this year. At one point, I'm not going to speak about our government, but at one point, Harvard was not allowed to have any internationals, which would have left them with 8 players. Thankfully, that was resolved, and I think they have 15 players for the year, which is also still not not great, especially with injuries. It's a long season. It's if you're a good team, it's about 3 months. You have 2 games a weekend every single week. Some teams have to fly to a lot of their games. I was luckily on a team that our longest trip was like an 8-hour bus ride, but our average game was about a 2-hour bus ride. So that was, nicer. Trying to think if there's like any other teams to watch out for. St. Joseph's, which is in Pennsylvania. They had an amazing run last year, made it to the finals, knocking out UNC in the semifinals, North Carolina in the semifinals, which no one expected. Literally no one. I was getting phone calls at halftime from all of my friends and coworkers being like, what is happening? So I'm excited to see how they do this year. Obviously, I got to shout out Sacred Heart because that's where I went. So I'm hoping that they win their conference title. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, a lot of hockey. There's upwards of 160 Division I games a weekend. No, that's definitely the wrong math. Upwards of 80 Division I games. I did 82 times 2. But there's 2 teams in a game. So yeah, so probably like 80 Division I games a week. Division II, there's only a couple, like there's 40 Division II teams, so 40-ish games. Yeah, 20, 40 games. And then Division III, there's like a billion games a week. So a lot of hockey if you want to watch it. I can't promise it will all be good hockey, but it's hockey. And then also I'm excited, a lot of our senior players are playing internationally this year. So Kelsey Bing is going to the Netherlands, which I'm super excited for. Son Carls she might play in Belgium now. I know she just switched teams.
You
I
have
don't know
a logistics manager right here.
Oh, I haven't got anything to do with that, but I know she plays in Belgium, yeah.
Yeah, we have a couple of other players who are going abroad who I don't know if they've announced where they're going yet. So excited to watch them play internationally. I think that's like for our team, even though like we are centralized and they can stay in North Carolina and practice there all year round. I like when they go play internationally because I think it gives them a better experience. And I'm really hoping that in January, if we see some kids go over to Hockey India League. We had 2 last year. And I really enjoy watching it because I think hockey, like India and hockey in India is like one of the best, like culturally best hockey areas. Like one of my goals is to work a tournament there because I think like the culture there is really, really cool. So I'm hoping more of our kids go to Hockey India League this year. And yeah, it's going to be a great hockey season and I'm going to be going crazy covering it.
Absolutely, fully agree with the Hockey India League statement there. I'm lucky enough to have a son who is coaching in the Hockey India League. Oh, was last year. Don't know for next year. and another son who used to play in the first generation of Hockey India League. So yeah, that's a big experience. One last question maybe for me regarding the American field hockey season or the American hockey season. You notice that I do say field hockey, and it's something that I've learned myself to do just because of SEO, just because of Google, just because of
Yeah.
searchability. Because yeah, the world of internet is ruled by the Americans. So and they know the sport as field hockey. So I hate it, but I've learned myself to talk about field hockey. Yeah. Um, one thing that always amazed me is what a couple of coaches told me about what they thought was peculiar about the American system and of coaching field hockey there is that you still have a basic starting 11 which plays for more or less the full game. Well, that's a little bit exaggerated, but okay, field hockey has rolling substitutions, like you mentioned earlier. In our part of the world, it is we have a team of 16. All 16 will play, unless one of them is the second goalie, maybe. Then all 15 will play several minutes a game. Um, you have less that mentality where the starting 11 plays most of the game, and if you're a reserve player, well, you're stuck on the bench unless somebody gets injured or just needs a 1 minute or 2 minute breather. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, at first I thought you were gonna go into our overtime rules, which
Yeah.
I cannot stand our 7v7 overtime. But yeah, I think that it's really interesting. And I think like I don't know for a fact, but I feel like it has a lot to do with scholarships. Because before the new roster caps and all the brand new rules, I think it was like 7.5 scholarship full rides worth. Which gets weird when you get into like the math of everything of who's a partial scholarship and everything. So you kind of had this like A tier of players who were your starters, your better players, and then you had your like B tier of kids who like weren't really on scholarship or like they're on a partial, so maybe they'll get subbed in. And then you have like that C tier of we have walk-ons, which a walk-on is basically a kid who has zero money, they're just there for vibes at that point. And like your walk-ons don't typically play. But you also have kids who are recruited who do not play at all. I personally know a kid who was recruited pretty heavily and then didn't play until her like third year on the team. Other than if we were up like 10-0. It's a weird coaching decision to me to not play players. We have this option called redshirting, which basically means you don't lose any eligibility. So for college field hockey, you have 4 years that you're allowed to play. So North Carolina specifically will redshirt half of their first year players. So that way they have 4 years after. So like they can go get a master's degree or whatever. And that's because they have a really talented roster. So they aren't maybe going to use those players. But I think that a lot of teams have like their substitution lines, their first line or second line of substitutions, and then they're not going deeper into their roster, which I don't necessarily like because, especially for players who were recruited, you're making all these promises in the recruiting process. I could go on an entire rant about the recruiting process, but the recruiting process comes with a lot of promises of, oh, you're going to be a starter, you're going to play, you're going to get all of these amazing experiences, and then you don't play them at all.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, especially in games that you're up like 5-0, 6-0, just play your backup line. Who cares? You're still up. Goal differential does really not matter for us. It only matters for like a handful of teams. And like we play in conference and out of conference, which I'll try not to get too like into the weeds here, but like especially out of conference, those games realistically don't matter for goal differential. So it's like at that point, just play your backup players and see what happens. So yeah, we definitely have a culture where like we have massive rosters and then we don't play like a big part of them.
Yeah, bizarre to me. Okay, we've been talking for almost an hour here. So, Jaspreet, before we start thanking Allison, Allison, maybe a last one for me to you. Well, the inverse. Do you have any question for Jaspreet? Do you have a question for me about our hockey culture?
You're putting me on the spot here.
Yep.
Yeah, I think probably one is like, how do you guys think that, like, obviously both of you guys like come from countries that have like massive hockey cultures, and like, how do you think that you got, like, your countries got to the point where it was a focal point of sports, versus us where it's like maybe a sport that you've heard of once in some random article you read.
Jaspreet, you first.
Yeah, hockey in India was a cult, for a part of the Olympics. 6 Olympics in a row, winning gold medal, 8 gold medals in total, and then a period from 1980 to 2021 when there was no semi-final appearances in the Olympics. So hockey is something that connects to the Indians in a way that no other sport does. I maintain that even if cricket is considered a religion now in India. Earlier, there used to be, when the hockey team used to come after winning gold medals, there used to be matches between the hockey players and the Bollywood, that is the silver screen, as we call it here in India, actors. They used to play matches with hockey teams. That was the cult status of hockey in India, and it didn't die. I would say that there was a dry patch where we took time to shift from the natural grass to artificial grass, and then we struggled to come up to the level that the Europeans or the Australians reached in the meanwhile. From 2010, I believe hockey, that change in India started coming, where hockey became more professional in India. So, to answer your question, it's something in India that's become totally professional now. The players who are playing hockey, they are just playing hockey. They have their jobs secured. They have their contracts secured. Their kitchen is never short of supplies. So everything is in place. So when you talk of hockey in India, it's entirely professional, more than I believe any other place in the world. Belgium, I know these guys are paid according to their reputation, the number of goals they score, how they perform in a particular match. For the club level differently, and for the international team differently. Ernst knows more about that, but yeah, when you talk about hockey in India, it really connects to the people, and it's entirely professional sport now.
Yeah. If I can pick up on that before moving to the European perspective, I guess Jaspreet, and correct me if I'm wrong, in the beginning of the when India originated, when India became a country, an independent country, it was one of the sports where you could beat your former colonizers of
Yeah.
GB. So that
Yeah.
that would help, I guess, in making it a popular sport, huh?
In 1948, in fact, just a year after our independence in 1947, the team that we beat in the final was GB, if I'm not
Yeah.
wrong, if I recollect correctly. So
Yeah.
that was sweet revenge.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, for us in Europe, it's completely different. The starting point is it could not be more different. Uh, yes, we have professional hockey or semi-professional hockey in certain countries in Europe, not all over Europe. But we have that mentality where we perceive that top hockey is there to support recreational hockey, not the other way around. So for us, the core is the family club. Is like you mentioned in the beginning earlier. My parents played hockey, therefore I played hockey. Therefore my kids are playing hockey, and by now even my grandkids are playing hockey. Uh, that is the family culture. So we come together at the club with family and friends. It's a leisure activity. It's also a educational choice. We think it builds character. I always told my kids they have to play one solo sport. They have to play one team sport. Uh, Hockey is a healthy sport. It's a team sport. It's outdoors. So those are the reasons why we pick hockey. I guess in countries like Holland and Belgium, it's even more. The parents put children into hockey because that's where their friends are. So on a Wednesday afternoon when the kids have practice, mothers can join up with their friends and talk while the kids are playing and practicing hockey. Friday nights practice, dads get back from work, they meet up with their friends at the bar of the hockey club. Saturdays you're there with your children, you meet up with friends, you make new friends when your kid transitions from team to team. Uh, so it's a very much it's a social leisure activity and an educational choice from the parents. So that makes it a completely different perspective to our sport. So hope that answers the question. Okay, let's round up here. Allison, thank you very much for shedding some light on US hockey and on the Field Hockey Analyst. That was cool to learn about that. Thanks very much for sharing your time with us and sharing some insights with us there. Jaspreet?
Yeah, I'm very impressed, and I'm sure Ernst will agree that the future of our hockey, coverage wise and analysis wise, is in very safe hands. And Allison is one of the brightest there. I can vouch for that after talking to you for almost an hour now. And thank you so much for giving us your time, although we had to go back and forth in because of the time zones that we are in, three different time zones. So,
Yeah.
but thank you once again for taking this much time and giving us an insight about the US hockey and what you're doing to take our sport further.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, guys. Thanks for listening to Studio Hockey. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast so you will not miss out on next episodes. Until next time, happy hockey.
Thank you. Bye bye.